uh, Grinch.
You use phone. I still use pen and paper. I think you might too. So I don't know.
All right, we'll find out eventually. One, two, three,
What?
four.
Okay. No.
One,
I knew you was two.
two.
I let you get in my head. Bro Diallo Show, Q4 Radio. We started the morning off every single Veterans Day that I'm on the air. I play Black Steel in the Hour of Chaos by Public Enemy because this is the most popular and prolific anti-war song from my generation. I'm a black man and I could never be a veteran. And then of course I had to pay something else in more in the along the line of our brothers and sisters, the veterans from the Vietnam era, the Gulf War era. So I had to put in work for peace, the military and the monetary, the military and the monetary. If you don't understand the military and the monetary, you don't understand anything about modern society, modern economics, or even modern culture. Anyway, happy Veterans Day if that's your thing. And we have an interesting show and a very interesting discussion. But before we want to get to that, I want to welcome the co-conspirator.
number two, number two.
Brother Chauncey's in the studio with us again.
Brothers and sisters.
How you doing this morning?
I'm all right. It's cold. I
You
wasn't
guys speaking
expecting
to the
the-
mic. You can't talk to me.
I wasn't expecting all the stuff outside, but
What's
but
the
we here.
stuff?
All of the let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Yeah, it was quite a bit of snow this morning, which I didn't look at the forecast. This was my birthday weekend, so I didn't do nothing. Didn't make it to the reparations conference,
Yeah.
even though we made all these big plans and it just fell asunder. Now we ain't gonna get our reparations.
Is it
We didn't
still
make it.
is it still 40 acres and a mule on the table though?
To the equivalent, have you heard the modern calculations of the 40 acres and a mule?
No, what's the latest?
They said 40 acres and a mule can be upwards of $160,000 per
Okay, I heard it.
in modern equivalent.
Yeah, I heard it initially right around 100.
I think they mostly calculating the acreages. I don't know how much a mule will cost.
Okay.
But I mean, land is so, the cost of land in the United States is so, you got everything from multi-million-dollar homes to dollar homes.
Yes.
But something I've observed, having traveled literally all over the United States, when they look at property values, they're not valuing property. They're valuing people.
Okay.
And I've always suspected this because you'd have some of this beautiful, if you go to like the southwest side of Chicago, or you go to the far west side, and you go to the Gold Coast or Lincoln Park, the various neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods versus wealthy neighborhood, it's the exact same infrastructure. The same mix of commercial slash residential, single family slash multifamily. It's the same layout, same grid system, same lighting, same trash disposal, same sewage system. It's identical infrastructure.
Then how does the influx of gentrification allow the price change?
I don't like the term gentrification.
Okay. But you do
But-
know that when they become inhabitants of the community,
Right.
that the numbers game changes.
Right. And right, so they're not valuing the property.
Yes.
Because what changes? What changes from a non-gentrified to a gentrified, or from a slum to a affluent community? What's the difference?
Exactly.
You
what
can't
you
even
said.
say it's income
Yes.
or education, because black educated people and black people with high levels of income are not enough.
Yes.
Because guess what happened, in the 70s and 80s? Wealthy black people, affluent, educated black people, they fled the black community with their asses on fire and went and diluted themselves amongst white neighborhoods. And that's why they're all these, go meet some offsprings of those affluent, wealthy black folks. They're all out of their minds
True enough.
because they had to go dilute themselves amongst whites.
Yes.
Because the 8%, the 8%ers?
No.
The 8% that's the tolerable level of black that the average white neighborhood is willing to tolerate. Once an area, a community, a city gets 8% above, or goes to 9% or more of black, that's when it becomes a slum. That's when the whites start to flee. White flight.
I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah, well, they average it. Some
Yeah.
places have higher levels of tolerance. Some places have lower levels of tolerance. But when you're looking at property values, whether it's the value of the home, the value of the land, the perceived value of the community, the quality of the public education, the level of policing, the quality of policing, whether you got militarist head-splitting cops versus officer-friendly getting kittens out of tree, the only dividing thing are the people.
This is true.
Neighbor and property values only value the people and the standing of the people in the society. It has nothing to do with the homes. You can literally buy a mansion for $1 in Harlem at one point.
Yeah.
They literally had dollar homes in my neighborhood, and now my wife was just checking the Zillow or whatever prices. They got houses for $800,000.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first moved here and moved into Bronzeville, a $250,000 was the upper limit of homes. The upper limit. And when I moved into my neighborhood where I live right now,
Right.
there were half the block was vacant, burnt out lots. And now they're throwing up these $800,000 home. And it ain't got nothing to do with me living there.
Yeah.
Because it was a slum most of the time I've been living there.
Yeah, it starts around 6 now.
I used to have my relatives call me like, "Oh, you okay? Well, boys, don't let the boys out the house." And now they calling me like, "Ooh, this is nice." They even talk to me different.
Right.
They treat me different. Where you live? I'm in Bronzeville. "Oh, Lord, are you okay? Are you on that stuff? Be careful."
Right.
And now they're like, "Where you live?" Bronzeville. "Hey, I'm coming to visit you. I'm going to come stay with you when I come to Chicago." It ain't got nothing to do with props. So, whenever we talk, it's funny how black people talk about getting money. And I don't know, I think it's the book, The Spook Who Sat by a Door.
Okay.
And the protagonist was arguing with his friend. And his friend was like, "Black people out here acting a fool, making us look bad." And he was like, "We need to act like we got some sense, get some education, and we need to do this, and we need to do that." So he turned to his friend and said, you acting like how we act, whether we are law-abiding and stand-up citizens or we out here bugging out and wilding out and rioting. But guess what? He said, what do you think they call a black man in a suit? A nigger.
Yeah.
So you can carry yourself properly, or you can out here be banging and slanging. It makes no difference to the systems and institutions of white domination. But anyway, I don't know how we got on property.
You see, I still got my black Grinch going.
How do we get on profit?
How do we get on profit?
You don't talking to the mic. You gonna
I'm sorry.
get us kicked off the air? No.
Okay.
Every time people always have an issue with that. I understand because that's the humane way. You want to talk and engage with the person as opposed to an inanimate object.
Right. I didn't want to put it over here in position.
Right. Yeah.
That's okay.
But I'm not offended. I don't mind talking to the side of your head.
Right.
I don't take it personally.
Right.
So, anyway, I don't know how we got off on property. Today is 11/11.
Is
19. Are you into numerology? That's got to mean something.
specific persons.
So you are. You didn't say no.
Yes, specific, but you know how compelled I am about my Baba.
Okay. So do you? What is the significance of the number 11?
Well, the number 11 itself, I don't know. I'm only concerned with his birth date and his time of decease in
Okay.
relation. But
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I got some insights on the 11/11. So when you
Okay.
got two 11s preceding the other.
Okay.
So, number 11 is a highly spiritual number, balancing the initiative qualities of the high priestess with the leadership and creative qualities of the magician. So the priestess and the magician come together somehow. Those whose lives are informed by number 11 are both spiritually sensitive and charismatic, cooperative, and independent. Damn.
A lot of great attributes.
Wow. I'm an 11. I was born in November.
Okay.
Wow. I am a socialist, cooperative, independent, charismatic. I'm not spiritually sensitive though. So I hit most of the 11.
Where's the magic part come in now?
I don't know. I talked to this spiritual guy. Some guy laid it out for me, right? I knew this brother. He went from being a devout Christian, and then he was enlightened from his devout Christianity, and he became a Hebrew Israelite. He found that we are the descendants of the tribe of Judah, the lost tribes of Israel, that we are the people of the word. So he said, and having us be Christians, we're not Christians, we are the true Jews, Hebrews. So he went from being a Christian to a Hebrew. Then he found out that wasn't the true teaching. Then he went on to a higher level, and now he's into predicting catastrophes and Armageddon that will come, and the polar shifts.
Black Nostradamus.
Right.
Okay.
And so he was, he and I used to debate. But one time I said to him, and he was running down the scriptures and running down all the prophecies and telling me that, you know, California was going to have earthquakes and all of that. And I said, what causes the earthquakes? And he said, God. I said, how come every time, every single 100% of the time since we've been able to trace earthquakes, how come God uses fault lines and tectonic plates? I said, where has God ever created an earthquake in a place that no human could predict it? Because everybody, you know, even in Missouri, we have that big fault line running through the Midwest. Florida has a couple. Every time the tectonic plates converge, that's where you have the earthquakes and the shifts of the tectonic plates. I say, how come he uses geography to make it? If he has all this power and all this magic, why not just have an earthquake in a place where we can go and do, you know, radar scans of the earth and the meridians and the fault lines, and identify, oh yeah, this is a place that has a high potential for earthquake. And then God, like, he uses NASA satellites. Did God take geology, graduate level geology, to make sure every time he does an earthquake, it appears as though it's tectonic shifts, or and then tsunamis, the same thing. But anyway, he was telling me about all these mysteries. So he's like, no, you don't understand the magical workings that God has done in parting seas. So I said, basically, all religions say this. They tell you this. There was a lot of magic in the past. And there will be a lot of magic in the future, raptures and all kind of divine things. And
Hold on. Rapture isn't in the Bible. It's caught up.
Okay.
That's a misnomer too, because rapture is found nowhere in the Bible.
Okay, let's say rain, fire.
Okay.
Rain, fire, tribulation, demons, weeping and wailing and moaning and gnashing of teeth. Mystical forces. God will return, or Jesus, flaming chariot, the sky opens up, and a host of angels come with God's vengeance. Satan takes dominion. Okay, all of that. The dead rising from the grave.
Right.
Basically, here's the most religions tell you. There was a ton of magic in the past. There will be a ton of more magnificent miracle magic in the future. But there is no magic right now. And in order to benefit from the future magic, you have to believe in the past magic without any evidence of magic right now today. And you know what he said to me? Yeah, that's it. There you go. This is the time. Because in the time of law, man was under God's law. So God would literally come down from heaven and sit and talk to somebody. So God wrestled with some people. He came and talked to Moses. He did all this stuff. But then he wrote in the Bible, God, you can't even look upon God's visage or you will disintegrate. Like Raiders of the Lost Ark, when they opened, like, you can't.
So God's been upset with us at least 2,000 plus years that he doesn't want to have a conversation with us whatsoever directly.
How does God get upset when he is omnipotent? He's
Hey,
omnipresent. He knew you and I would be sitting here a trillion years ago.
I'm not refuting it.
How do you get upset when you see something coming?
I just want clarity. You create all this madness, and now I'm at fault for it. Huh?
You know what I can tell God? Basically, God didn't understand. You can't turn a hoe into a housewife. You can't turn a human into a divine being. We are biological creatures.
Yeah.
We are musty, hairy, horny.
What was
covetous.
what was the whole?
Every God's rules are like, it's like God literally made us in such a way that we could absolutely had no chance of adhering to His rules.
Well, what was the whole free will about? Wasn't that free will?
Right. And didn't you give us free will?
Yeah.
And then you hide yourself away.
Yeah.
And we got to look for you in crusted breads or water stains. That's what they find in Jesus now.
Yeah.
Water stains and bread crust. Like if God was walking down the street, wouldn't you fall to your knees? What they say, every knee shall bow?
I'd probably fall to my knees because I'd be happy He's taking His people and I can be left alone here.
Either way, if God was here. But God was like, no, I did a whole bunch of magic in the past, and here's an old, confusing, silly book that I write down all my magical powers. In that book, I will also tell you about the magic in the future. But you get no magic. I ain't parting no seas.
That's what I asked you too a while back. I don't remember how long it was. Who owns the copyright to the Bible now?
I didn't know any. I thought the Bible was public domain. I thought I could go out and write my own Bible and get away with it.
No. Council Nicaea and they're its possession of that.
I mean, it's 2,000 years old.
Yeah, but someone owns
Heaven
the rights.
Inc.
You can't print one and put one out.
Jesus Christ LLC.
No.
And they don't know. Ain't no copyright on the Bible.
Okay, I'll tell you what. You print it exactly the same way as such and put it out.
Well, there's at least 1,500 Bible. You know, there's over 1,000 denominations of Christianity.
Yeah, but
that sounds like Illuminati. Oh my God, you're right.
British Crown.
Oh my goodness. The Bible does have a copyright ownership. That's why I hate the internet. We could have debated this the whole show, but the internet like shuts everything down.
There you go.
I did not know that. All these years.
There you go.
The Bible does have the British Crown. Wow. But they don't enforce it, do they? I ain't even going to get into that.
Yes, they do. I told you. Try to write it exactly as such and put your own version out for sale.
Oh, I didn't.
And see what happens.
So, yes, the Bible is under copyright, and it's not God. It's not Jesus.
There you go.
It's not even the Peter, Paul, or Mary.
Look it up.
It's Queen Elizabeth.
Look it up.
Prince Charles.
Look it up.
Well, now a sister in on that. What's that sister? Mary Merkel?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Yeah.
Now we got somebody that's in line to get some of that biblical copyright.
A lot of money.
What's her name?
Yeah.
And she's moving to L.A.
Yeah.
Contaminating the royal bloodline with her black blood.
I forgot her name.
You know
I
why
see
I
her
did that?
face though.
What's her name? Is it? No, Angela Merkel is
something like that.
the prime minister of Japan of Germany.
I see her face though. I can't. She reminds me of that other girl.
What is her name? Internet. What's the name of the princess?
I'm sure somebody on the tube
People that
channel.
follow that stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of black people act hella militant, but then like there's a royal wedding and they go hide, they pull all the shutters down, they get out their little plastic tiara and they sit there with flowers crying for the princess.
Yeah.
I don't know her name.
Mark. I can't.
I can't even. I don't even know what to put in.
That's her though. That's her face though.
Whatever. That's not important.
Right.
She's in the line to get some of that money.
There
Some of
you
that
go.
Bible money. We got one of us is up there. You know how it is when we got one of our own up there.
Yeah.
The black people still believe that though.
Meghan Markle. Or
Meghan,
something like that.
right.
Something.
You know.
Hey.
That it is Marco, not Merkel. You knew the name. Come on, man. You knew the Bible was copywritten. Don't be humble. I'm not ego like that. You can just shame me. You can upstage me all day long. I know what I know. I don't know what I don't know. I'm learning here today.
That's all right.
So Meghan Markle is up there for us. representing us.
Her and Byron Allen.
We got one of us up there. Right, we on our way to the Supreme Court. We on our way to the Prince of Wales, to Whitehall, to Casterly Rock, whatever. We getting up there, y'all.
Yeah.
We up there. We making it, y'all.
I don't want her to get up there. I want her to go down there to the Vatican basement, where all the records are.
And then they gonna Princess Di her. Calm down.
of all
No,
of
she
all
just
our
wear
history.
nice dresses and show up at the ball and represent us. Cause if she do bad, we all do bad. She do good, we all do good. And I'm just speaking for black. Now I don't believe this, but since the black folks, y'all ride on that, y'all. I mean, this vicarianism. That's my word.
Yeah.
That's my word. I'm gonna copyright that. I'm gonna call the British Royal Crown and tell them our vicarianism. We live through these people, and so maybe she'll come open a school somewhere in a poor black community like King James.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised black folks. My younger brother is a basketball fanatic,
Okay.
and he's a Christian fundamentalist. And so I thought he would take issue with LeBron James branding himself King James, the author of his beloved Bible.
Our community uses king and queen loosely, period. So we've been desensitized.
But King
from that
James has a specific meaning. I was raised up on the King James Bible. Well,
Correct.
two Bibles, the Douay Bible and the King James Bible, because I went to a Catholic school, so they used the Douay Bible, and I was brought up Methodist and then Baptist,
Right.
and that was King James version.
Right. But I don't think they'd make the correlation. They're not thinking of the correlation as such.
But then they have a J with a crown on it
I
for
mean,
his sneakers.
Yes.
And I remember when I was a kid, they used to have the crown to represent the crown of thorns of Jesus. There's a lot of like Illuminati-ist,
Yeah.
Illuminati-ish. Not all the way. We using ish for stuff because we don't want to stand for nothing. Like we can be blackish, we can be wokish. It's Illuminati-ish.
The first
With
time
that
we
King
made
James.
the connection for profit was with Jay-Z and Rockefeller. Before that, we didn't make the correlation. British Knights, the sneakers
Right.
came out, all that stuff came out. We didn't make the correlation to the end of that.
They used
We
to say
weren't-
that Troop was made by the KKK. Remember Troop? I used
Yeah.
to love Troop.
Yeah.
Troop jackets and them big puffy Troop shoes.
Right. Yeah, we didn't make the correlation to any of that.
I'm glad we didn't,
Yeah.
because we was fly.
Right.
So, remember when that one comedian said, too short, he had a Troop jacket and the T and R fell off and it just said, oop.
Yeah.
That's some old school. Man, we used to crack on people, man. So it is, I mean, there's a lot going on. I learned that the Bible is under copyright. I would have totally argued you all the way down that the Bible was still in public domain.
Yeah.
You couldn't have told me that I just know the word of God couldn't be on, not only, and that's just another thing. Because I had somebody argue with me, I had a Sikh come at me.
Yeah.
You messing up when you got somebody sworn to nonviolence, cussing you out.
Yeah.
But I said every black Muslim and Christian is a product of conquest, colonization, enslavement, and cultricide. That's another word I've coined, cultricide.
Yeah, you better start. Well, I guess you got to back up on Facebook unless Facebook gets shut down.
What do you mean?
To coin your words and put it somewhere else for safekeeping.
I just put it out to the ether. I give it to I'm like Jesus. I just go about doing good works and I move on. I don't have disciples. I don't have nice sandals, but I just go about healing the sick and then I move on to the next town. That's all I do, man. So I'm not going to copyright. I'm not going to be like the British Crown. Y'all look that up. The Bible is under copyright. So every time you buy a Bible from your religious store, every time your auntie or grandma give you a Bible for Christmas,
Exactly.
give you a Bible for every time you messing up, she think you on drugs and think you might be genderqueer or whatever. And they buy you Bibles as an insult. I never had somebody give me a Bible out of genuine love. They always like, if I'm doing wrong, well, I got you a Bible. That means I think there's something wrong with you, and you need to get yourself together.
So,
that's what buying somebody a Bible means.
To put it in short, we own God too.
Just his word. Just
Hey,
his word.
hey,
So I wonder if the Quran does the Saudi, because the number one Quran producers in the world is the Saudi royal family. But I know Muslims don't play that. I'm not even gonna look it up.
I don't want to
I
scare
don't.
you.
I want to don't. I sometimes wonder. I'm trying to debate with people, and they're like, "I ain't trying to hear that." Sometimes I wonder, what is it? Is ignorance truly bliss? I'm not even gonna look into that issue with the Quran. I want to be ignorant.
But the funny part is, and I'm not making light or fun of you of that's not common knowledge. I mean, I probably 97% of the audience isn't aware of what you just
That the Bible's under
uncovered.
copyright.
We've been over 2,000 plus years, and that's not common knowledge. Why? There's a reason for that.
I don't like knowing this. I don't want to know this. Now you're gonna bring me down. I'm gonna have to start wearing hoods and stuff in the studio. I didn't want to know that.
I'm getting my black Grinch on.
I didn't want to. I talk about the Bible and I talk about Christianity like a dog. I should know this.
Yeah. That's
So
all
yeah,
right.
you did tear me down live on the air. You could have slipped me a note right here under, but nope, you could have wrote it down like, nah, I'm serious.
No,
Because you'd be telling jokes too.
Yeah, but you again.
I don't know when you joking and when you serious.
You're in the 97, 98%.
And you out me on the show. Here, you take this seat. I'll go ahead.
No.
I go clean the bathrooms or something else.
You're
There's
in-
a lot of work to be done in Q4 studio.
You're amongst good company. 97, 98% percentile.
Yeah, I am of the masses. I'm the
Right.
proletariat of Pan-Africanism.
There you go.
So yeah. So I gotta
good.
know. And I'm not even gonna look and find out about the Quran.
Yes.
I don't even want to know. I don't want to know. Because Quran, Islam is like, what, 600 years old? Islam is the brand new religion. So I know the money's fresh. That's new money. Islam is new money.
Yeah.
Saudi royal family, they just been raping and pillaging and colonizing.
Yeah.
They ain't been at it as long as the Christians. But anyway, let's get to our news topic so then we can get to talking about Veterans Day.
Okay.
First of all, there's been a coup d'etat in Bolivia. Evo Morales, the first indigenous president of Bolivia, has been ousted. Now, I've always kind of watched Bolivia because that's where Che Guevara died. Mm-hmm. And there's this wonderful book called The Bolivian Diary. And Che Guevara always thought that Bolivia was ripe for revolution, that Bolivia could be the Vietnam of the Western Hemisphere, that he could spark a guerrilla movement that would start in Bolivia, expand to across Latin America, through Central America, and even eventually reach America's shore with armed guerrilla liberation warfare. And of course, the CIA went down there and assassinated Che Guevara and funded the Bolivian military. But anyway, Bolivia, basically, Evo Morales resigned yesterday, and I was shocked. I know they were trying to get him because I don't want to give too much back history, but in early 2000 with the war on terror, you had the Bolivarian Revolution. See, the brothers and sisters in Latin America were smart. They knew that the United States and the good neighbor policy goes all the way back to Woodrow Wilson, where they said, they told all of the European empires, this is our sphere of influence. Central America and Latin America and the Caribbean is our sphere of influence. So you can colonize Africa and run through Africa, Asia, Southeast Asia, all of that. That's all you, player.
Right.
But the Americas is the empire. And they even told Canada, listen, Canada, you can play bully, but you got to come in behind us. You got to be our support. And that's how this hemisphere, the Western Hemisphere, has run since 1492. Not so much, more like the 1700s, right? With Louisiana Purchase and the conquest of Mexico, the Mexican-American War, the Spanish-American War, the Philippines, and all the Johnson. But so long story short, people of the Caribbean, unlike people, U.S. citizens, know that the United States is an empire. They have no doubts that the United States is an empire. And they saw that after the Cold War, from between the end of World War II and Vietnam, Korea, that the United States was trying to go global. They didn't want to, because prior to World War II, the United States was what you call a regional empire or a regional superpower that controlled the Western Hemisphere. They wanted to be a global superpower. And they saw that the British Empire fell after World War II, the French Empire fell, the Spanish and Portuguese empires fell before that, and World War II was about Germany trying to become a global power. So there was a power vacuum. And that's when basically the communists and the capitalists, or the Russians versus the America, the Cold War started. So anyway, Latin America went through a revolution because the United States, when the United States went global, after 1973, they overthrew they put in Pinochet in power. And they were basically like told Latin America, if you go left, if you go socialist, if you go communist, if you go sovereign, we're going to kill you and upend you. So they literally, all the constitutions of Latin America, all of the militaries of Latin America, they opened up the School of the Americas. I don't know the new name, but the School of the Americans, where they would bring Latin American generals and many Latin American leaders like Fox, who was the president many years of Mexico. They all went to Harvard, to Stanford, to the University of Chicago. So all the children of the Latin American elite either come to U.S. military schools or U.S. universities, learn capitalism and whiteism, and go back to Latin America.
University died.
But George Bush, the second George Bush, blew all that up because he put all of U.S. military and focus on the Middle East with the PNAC, Project for a New American Century, because they had concluded South America and Africa upon lock. It's locked down. So anyway, all of that to say, that's when Latin American, starting with Hugo Chavez, was like, yo, we can rise up. Mm-hmm. All the military, all the resources, all the media, all the CIA, FBI, NSA, all the Jason Bournes and James Bonds, they're all in the Middle East. So we can do our thing here in Latin America. And they had themselves the Bolivarian Revolution. And they had all these leftist, socialist, indigenous leaders rise up. Venezuela, Lula in Brazil, Bolivia, of course, and Evo Morales was one of the last standing progressives in South America.
Hercules.
Right, and he was one of the last. They locked up Lula in Brazil. They locked him up, and basically the only countries that didn't go left was not Brazil, Colombia, and Argentina, which are two of the whitest, quote unquote, Latin American countries. Most Euros said that's where the Nazis went. I talked about this, I think last week. Yeah. The Boys of Brazil. That's a movie they made about how all the Nazis came to the Latin America, because now how these Germans come to Latin America and hide, because not only were there white people control South America, and there was a large white ideology, the racist ideology. Bolivia for 500 years had apartheid. Up into the 2000s, they had like legal racial segregation for natives and blacks in Bolivia. The natives didn't have voting rights, didn't have civil rights. And Evo Morales, just in like 2012, wiped all that out. I sent you the articles about all the positive changes that Evo Morales had brought to, in the 12 years, heralding ascent of indigenous social movements. And his movement was the movement towards socialism, the MAS, or Movimento ao Socialismo. That's the name of their political party, the movement towards socialism. They ended the apartheid system that existed for 500 years. He was popular. He won, when he first got in, 57% of the vote. In his re-election bid, he got 64% of the vote. In 2014, he got 61% of the vote. And now for the 2019 election, they claim he stole the election. Yeah. When every preceding election, he held higher numbers. Each time he got elected with a higher margin than Obama, than Bush, and Trump. Yep. And they said, the Organization of American States said, we question the military. And the chief of the military in Bolivia stated that he should go. And he was like, this is a coup d'etat, and he's resigning because they're killing the indigenous people in Bolivia right now. You saw that mayor, they marched through the street. Mm-hmm. what's her name? She was spray painted. Her face was Patricia Ars in Vinto. The right wing fascists went to her office, pulled her out of the city hall, spray painted her whole body red, and marched her to the street. And then they said they were going to strip her naked in front of the world, and she resigned. And these were right wing. So, you have these protests, and that's a thing with this global protest. You have protests throughout Latin America. You got protests in Haiti. We got protests in Hong Kong. We got protests, the Yellow Vest protests in France, the Cologne, and protests, the Spain. Spain has protest movements. But some of these protests are left or progressive protests, and some of them are right-wing protests. And you can tell which are right-wing protests is because the ones that the United States speaks favorably of. Like the protest movement in Venezuela. Sorry about that. So, there's been basically the last bastion for socialism and the Bolivarian revolution now is Venezuela. And we know that Venezuela is under economic attack, has suffered many coups d'etats. I believe that Obama assassinated Hugo Chavez. Wait, I'm sorry. Let me not be disrespectful. We forget about Cuba because Cuba has been standing so long, more than half a century. So Cuba and Venezuela are the last two strongholds of, and it was a coup d'etat because it wasn't the president. The president, the vice president, the upper house, the head of the upper house, and the head of the lower house all resigned. So it was a complete decapitation of government. But if you read the New York Times, they're just basically like, oh yes, there was some corruption and voting irregularities, so he stepped down. What politician? There was voting irregularities. Look at Bush. Yeah. No president resigns based on voting irregularities. And when does can the head of the Pentagon, can the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, would any media outlet go to the Joint Chiefs of Staff and ask him his opinion on whether or not the U.S. president should be impeached or step down? So we got a coup d'etat in plain sight, which means what I had said when Obama left office. They had the power, the iron fist of power. But under capitalism, the iron fist of power likes to wear a velvet glove. So they said, yeah, you won't have true freedom, but you have what we call consumer rights or consumer freedoms. You'll have 50 brands of toothpaste. You'll be able to buy a new iPhone or lease a new car. So this is your freedom you can have. But as for independent thought, access to true education, access to true sovereign ideas or real options in terms of options in the economy, in the materialist realm where Marx said if you ain't got economic power, all other power is an illusion. And from the dialectical materialism, that where the economy is the engine. So if you can't say, hey, this is how the society will produce money, distribute money, sustain money, expand money, this is how the society will deal with its natural resources in terms of exploitation or preservation of natural resources. If you don't have any say about the fundamental of the economy, you have no power. And the citizens of the United States have no say in that. And every day, not only do we surrender our say, we celebrate the loss of that power. We get happy when billionaires like, what's his name? We were just talking about King James, LeBron James, or Bill Gates comes to our community and open up charter schools. We celebrate the erosion of what's called the public sector because we were raised on that, the public sector, the government can't do nothing. But this is supposed to be government of the people. So whenever a rich person says government, they're saying you. Right. And then some people are like, well, the government. You're talking about that's your only recourse. And now we got ADOS telling black folks don't vote tangible S. That's what I call it, tangible S, not tangibles. But anyway, I'm digressing. I have to get back to the line. This coup d'etat, because what most people are like, what has it got to do with me? The Bolivian president stepped down. Yeah, and the Bulls, not the Bulls, I'm sorry. The Bears beat the Lions. So who cares? Yeah. This is a good day. Because the Bears beat the Detroit Lions. But the reason it matters is because, number one, you should read, there's an author by the name of Chalmers Johnson. He's dead now, but he wrote the series of books. He used to be a right-wing fascist, really. He used to be a right-wing, anti-communist code warrior. That's what they used to call themselves back in the day. I'm a code warrior, meaning that I'm letting Africans and Latin American people spill their blood in Vietnam. I'm letting other people of color spill their blood in the name of white Western American ideas, like capitalism and democracy. But anyway, when he got older, he was like, man, I spent my whole life just being bass backwards. Totally dysfunctional. So dude was like, I'm going to tell it. He's going to tell it all. He worked for Nixon, he worked for Reagan, and he wrote the series of books on U.S. empire, Sorrows of Empire, and one of the best books in that series is Blowback. So he goes into detail, and so does John Perkins with Economic about how when the U.S., the FBI, goes overseas and topples governments and violates the sovereignty of a foreign nation, how it comes back on the U.S. So we already saw Saddam Hussein is from the Mujahideen and Al Qaeda. The secession is the Mujahideen gave birth to the Taliban. The Mujahideen gave birth to the Taliban, gave birth to Al Qaeda, gave birth to ISIS. Boom, boom, boom. World Trade Center. Well, really, World Trade Center, that's a whole nother thing. Yeah. But that was blowback. And so when you have destabilization and you literally turn Latin American nation into narco states, which is what they are. They're narco states. They're not democracies. They're not socialists. They're what you call narco states. They're literally incubators for America's drug habit. So that's already the opioid crisis, fentanyl crisis, meth crisis, all these crises white folks is having. That's a direct byproduct of destabilization of Latin American nation to create corridors for these cartels. And when you trace the cartels, it ain't a bunch of guys wearing bandanas with AK-47s in the Latin American jungles. They're in the White House. They're in the Senate and the Congress. So that's how it is a blowback. It's coming back on the United States. So I'm really not happy with Evo Morales being overthrown. He has brought economic prosperity up until, they had the poverty line in when Evo Morales came to power, the poverty level was 75% of people live below poverty. And we're not talking about government cheese poverty like here in the United States. We're talking no running water, no electricity, no education, not poor schools or bad schools, no schools. And Bolivia is rich with resources. Yes. And even the white people, even the Council on Foreign Relations and what the World Bank, IMF, they were all saying, Bolivia is creeping on the come up. You can go to their sites they got stats going back from 1951 on Bolivia. Yeah. And it shows that Evo Morales was not just a popular president, he was one of the most effective rulers they ever had. Now they're under a military junta, a military dictatorship, overnight, like that. Because now the United States is reorienting its focus. You hear Trump like, I'm bringing the troops out of the Middle East. They're not coming home. When he brings back the troops, that's what Dale Jones called you loosen up to get a tighter grip. Yeah. So every time we look like America's doing the right thing or reorienting itself and changing its values, that's loosening up to get a tighter grip. Anyway, so sometimes I wish I could just say something like to wrap this up and say, pray for Evo Morales. But that's not going to do anything. So what I would say is fight the empire to end the empire. Every U.S. citizen is an imperial citizen. And it is our duty as we sit here in the comfort of the richest nation in history of nation states, of nationhood, that we have to do everything we can to oppose imperialism and to articulate our distaste or our outrage about the United States would overthrow another government. And the U.S. never learns. Learn or burn. So anyway.
We always say going over there, peeking in them other people's windows.
Right. Forcing them to be a little scared and keep their curtains closed. Yeah. So Evo Morales, I denounce. I denounce. But that's a good segue into Mexico, the narco state.
Oh, ski mask way.
Right. But I'll share these links. I got links on the coup d'etat. Because just with Evo Morales in Bolivia, they're saying, he stepped down. He just resigned because of voting irregularities. He didn't resign because of voting irregularities. Yeah. He resigned because the head of the military went on TV and say, "Hey, yo, step down or get took down." And he said he had a bunch of indigenous people that were ready to fight, but they didn't have the arms.
Right.
Because the Bolivian military is armed by the U.S. military. So they would have drones, satellite logistics, what do they call it? Advisors like they had in Vietnam. Like the U.S. in Syria, advisors. And the next thing you know, Evo Morales would have been on the terrorist watch list. And you know, every time they kick in and they go and overthrow a leader, they always find a copy of Mein Kampf. Remember, they went and got Noriega, a Panamanian hustler. What are you doing reading Mein Kampf? He don't even speak German or English. And they said Noriega. Every time they said Saddam had a copy of Mein Kampf. And then, you know, they always do this. And I'm not joking. Y'all think I'm crazy. Just like I thought you were crazy when you said the Bible was under copyright. People think I'm crazy. Every single time they go and overthrow a foreign leader, they find two things: a copy of Mein Kampf, they say, "Oh, he's a Nazi, he's a Hitler," and they find weird sex stuff. They said Saddam had sex dungeons. They said, you know, and go look it up, the details when they go into the compounds, and they don't ever say their homes. They don't say their mansions. They don't say the state building. They were like, we entered the compound of this evil dictator. And all it is was a little man trying to bring a little socialism, a little freedom, a little relief to the poor people of his country, trying to put some restrictions on the corporations coming in and extract the wealth, trying to limit the access and the penetration of U.S. armed forces and intelligence agency, just trying to govern his state. And they kick in his door. If I went and became an African leader of an African country now, I could have a humble home, my wife, my kids, a dog, and an Xbox. And they come, we're going into Diallo Kenyatta's compound. Oh, look at this dildo we found. Oh, and a copy of Mein Kampf. Now, I do have a copy of Mein Kampf.
Do you have a dildo though?
No. But they bring that stuff. They always say it's a compound. Like no overseas leaders live in homes. When unless like they're enemies. Like U.S. allies, now they do live in homes in the mansion or the estate. But they always say compound. They run this hustle every time. And that's what scares me. Not that the rulers of the world do this stuff, but that the masses of the citizens who are my group, my posse, my crew, the masses, the unwashed masses, we fall for it every single time. So Evo didn't want them to run up and bring a copy of Mein Kampf and dildos into his quote-unquote compound.
Yeah.
And just put him out there like that and gather up his sons and murder his sons and take him to Geneva, Switzerland somewhere and put him on trial and have all these dead bodies that the right-wing fascists murdered to blame on. He's like, I ain't trying to go through all that. He's a native man.
It would be funny because every time they find a copy, I bet you it's a reissue.
Right. The most updated copy. And I know it's funny, but they do it. The CIA does that. They have to besmirch you. They have to make you the villain. Yeah. It's called psychological projection. Yeah. They make them, Bolivia's an enemy, a threat to America. They convinced us that Panama was a threat to America, that Afghanistan doesn't even have a railroad system, don't even have an internet system. Literally, when the United States invaded Afghanistan, they had to pave the roads to get there because there was no infrastructure to set up to even attack them. You know, there was nothing. They were like, well, we have to create a place to attack. They were like, we're going to bomb Afghanistan to the Stone Age. They were like, oh, we have to build it up first because it's already at the Stone Age.
You can get there with the tanks, though.
And not even the tanks. It's mountainous. Yeah. But anyway, more U.S. imperialism. Yeah. Which I think it's appropriate to talk about this on Veterans Day. But Mexico. There was a story where Ovidio Guzman Lopez, the son of El Chapo, was arrested. And then a bunch of people came out, a bunch of the cartel came out and had more guns and more troops than the U.S. And when we talk about the police in Mexico, we talk about militarized police in the United States. We look silly saying that. Because like places like Jamaica, Mexico, the so-called third world, the police is the military. They don't have military going overseas to attack people. Their military is literally turned inward, aimed at the people, which is where we're going, but we ain't there yet. So the police arrest the son of El Chapo, Lopez, Guzman, Ovidio, and last week and there was a big shootout, and the police said, listen, if you stop shooting us, we will release him, give him back to you. So they gave him back. So now that they've given him back, the cartel is going around assassinating the members of the police force, the special task force that arrested him. Even though they gave him back. Not a scratch on him. You see a picture of him, he's clean. His hair, not a hair out of place. They was like, nah, just the fact that you attempted to arrest dude. So it was caught on surveillance camera. They rode up on this dude in his minivan, going to get milk and cookies for his family. And they riddled his car with 155 bullets.
Ski mask way.
And I just want to bring this up to say that Mexico is literally a narco state. And the gangs run. They call them cartels. They call them gangs. They call them syndicates. Every now and then they change the name for whatever reason. But the cartels run things. And that makes me think about the revolutionary but gangster. Because we have a lot of people in this community, in the conscious community, that spew rhetoric about gangs. They call gangs, they call them street tribes or street organizations. And they promote this myth that the gangs are a potential revolutionary fighting force. That they are a bulwark between black people and genocide to prevent the state from rising up against us. And if the state rises up against us, the gangs will redirect their arms from shooting at each other with our children in the crossfire and re-aim those guns at the thing. And even Dead Prez put out a whole album called Revolutionary but Gangster. And the RBG, and I'm finding so many people that promote this RBGs, and gangs are political institutions, and they go back to the Slawsons and the other community groups that formed together to fight off the white kids when black people went west and went into the cities of the north from the agricultural centers of the south, and say and have the delusion or promoting the myth that there's some type of ongoing connection between community independent community defense groups and modern street gangs.
That's just like waiting for Jesus to come back, isn't it?
Probably worse, because if Jesus was doing momentary drive-bys, rape and pimping and trafficking of young girls, we all know what the gangs get up to. He was doing that and say, "I'll be back, but I'm gonna come back good. Like if you ever get in trouble, I'll be there for you." Like the Friends theme song. So I would like for people who believe in the RBG, Revolutionary but Gangster, and believe that black on black criminals. Number one, I tell you to read Amos Wilson, Black on Black Crime, Black Self-Annihilation in service to white supremacy. And I also tell you to look at Mexico and tell me if things are better under the narco state or the gangs, where they have over 100 homicides a day throughout Mexico. But at the same time they have 100 homicides and all of this catastrophe, they still have an oligarchical class in Mexico that runs the resorts, that live the most lavish lifestyle up until Bill Gates. Before Bill Gates and then Bill Gates was the richest man in the world. Then there was a Mexican. For many years, the richest man in the world was a Mexican citizen, a Mexican.com guy. And then Bezos came and displaced him.
Right.
So a lot of people think that Bezos displaced Bill Gates as the richest man, but it was actually a Mexican that was the richest man in the world. And then Bezos, and now Bill Gates is now the richest man again because Bezos took a serious hit. Amazon took a serious hit. So he lost a couple of $1 billion in the stock market dip. So now Bill Gates is back on top. So I don't know if that's something. Bezos, what I said?
Gates. I knew what you meant, though.
Gates is now the richest man again. He took the crown back.
Right. Okay.
That's all I'm saying. So more vaccines for Africa. Mm-hmm. Yay! The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So moving on. But just look at Mexico. If you want to see what it'd be like if the gangs took over in the hood, as opposed to the revolutionaries, the freedom fighters, or the just true citizens. If you want to see what that looks like, all these people out here saying revolutionary but gangster street tribe and street organizations. Even Farrakhan runs that rhetoric.
Yeah, we've been waiting on that revolt for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
And all that. The RBG individuals, the RBG aesthetics, take a look at Mexico because they got what y'all claim y'all want. Facebook apologized before we go to the main story, I guess, but we got time. Facebook apologized for the culture of racism or the racist corporate culture. Don't you feel better? Look at that sigh of relief. Facebook there was an anonymous letter written by current and former Facebook employees stating that Facebook had a culture of racism, and it ain't just blacks, Asians, and women, sexism too. It was just a toxic culture within Facebook, and the corporate and the management never took time to address or even acknowledge it until now, until this letter was made public.
But in the interim of that cultural sensitivity, you may have not noticed that they slipped under their little tabulations for censorship as well, because now they're addressing things as your little emoticons for, it's gonna affect the vegans because you can't put a peach and an eggplant
Y'all
together
ruined
no
peaches.
more.
I ain't ate a peach or an eggplant in about 2 years. Y'all the ones. Y'all dirty. Y'all ruined that for me.
Yeah, so
Facebook is found God.
mm-hmm.
They're getting rid of sexually suggestive emoticons,
Yes.
and they're acknowledging the fact that they have a racist culture within the company. I hate Facebook now.
Yeah.
I post a lot less to Facebook.
Yeah.
And I don't like Facebook, and I try to look for alternatives to Facebook. They got the Cookout app. You heard of the Cookout app? The uppity negresses.
Well,
They've been on the show.
We've had a melanated app. I forgot the name of it, but they really didn't do much with the platform.
And the Ning, there's been a lot of people that came. Mastodon, I heard.
Melanatedpeople.net.
Okay.
So, but the platform has kind of pretty much still been stagnant.
Well, there's Mastodon and there's MeWe, and MeWe doesn't track your info. MeWe doesn't keep any of your data or anything. They give you ownership. So you got MeWe, the Cookout app, but I don't know if that's for women only. Well, it says the cookoutonline.com.net, and it's black-centered social media app.
It probably has a better splash page than melanatedpeople.net.
But you can't just sign up. You have to apply, and they might reject your application.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But the uppity negresses, they were on. I've had them on our show, and so they are the founders of the Cookout app. So that's. I mean, there's options, but I would like to see Facebook go the way of MySpace.
MySpace is out the door.
Well, I mean, no, MySpace still exists. But it doesn't have the influence that it once had. But I just don't see, with all the data breaches and everything. I mean, I go there because, I go to where the people live.
Where the people at.
But
Tom is on Facebook, isn't he? Tom from MySpace? I think he's on Facebook.
He's just there to recruit people to come back. I mean, but Facebook is garbage, man. Facebook. And I stopped because one time I had posted something about feminazis.
Okay.
And I said, I was just going back and forth with this guy in the comments where he kept saying feminazis. And I said, I just was explaining to him how feminazis didn't make any sense because the Nazis had traditional family values. They wanted women to be procreative, submissive,
Subservient.
right.
Okay.
And I showed him some Nazi propaganda posters. And they had the men out plowing the fields, the men going off to war or going off to work, and they had a woman literally sitting at home whittling and knitting and birthing and babies. Mm-hmm. So I said, Hitler and the Nazis would hate the feminist agenda. Mm-hmm. They were against it. And everyone likes to think that with genocide that Hitler was in favor of abortion or killing babies. Mm-hmm. But in actuality, for Aryan women, he had literally fertility clinics and birthing homes for so his idea is that women should be silent, beautiful, subservient, and reproductive.
Amish.
Right. So I was like, feminazi doesn't make any sense. I said, you can call them femi-communist.
But, again, I always tell you these things evolve. Now, we agreed that wasn't his premise then and his ideology. But when you put it in perspective as the world evolves and eugenics and whatever, and you trying to still salvage what you have, they do evolve into a new ideology. If the women are part of the ethnicity or the direct bloodline of that, then hell, we about to make women fighters now too, So to say, how he would feel about it now, if we see a steady decline in the populace of them, then he would adjust. So I don't know if your guy was arguing that point or that he thought that was the initial premise, because it never was.
I don't think Hitler would have went there.
Yeah.
Because some of Hitler's advisors did say, they put child soldiers out there.
Yes.
They kept lowering the age. They were like, they had towards the end of the Eastern expansion, the Eastern campaign, when the Nazis knew they were going to get mollywopped by the communists. The communists beat the Nazis, not the capitalists, not the United States.
Right.
Stalin beat Hitler. Right. Paid the highest cost. But whatever. Let's rewrite history and pretend like American soldiers went in there and saved the day when they didn't. Right. If it was up to the United States,
and Stalin has
we'd be speaking German numbers right now, huh?
And Stalin has the biggest numbers out of all of them.
Yes, but we digress. It's enough revelations with the copywritten Bible. That's enough. But Hitler didn't put women out there.
Yeah.
He put children out there. He even put elderly soldiers out there. Yes. Remember, they were even told him, listen, maybe we should stop killing the Jews who are German citizens and Jews in Poland and in our occupied territory. Give them a gun and let them fight for Germany. He didn't put women out there like that. There was no, remember during World War II, the United States had Rosie the Riveter, and they sent women in to take over the manufacturing, and they gave them a mascot, and Rosie Riveter. Yeah. Was there a German equivalent of that?
No.
But, the Germans were sexist. That's all I'm saying. And I'm like, you're a sexist. So I said, maybe you should come up with something more intelligent to insult feminists. Call them femi-communists. Because communists have a lot of ideas that align with the modern feminist agenda. Yeah. The communists did. Now, the communists let women fight. They'd have women snipers and the commissars and all of that. The communists put women up and let women take positions of influence within their ranks. But the Germans didn't. The Nazis didn't. Yeah. So anyway, I said all that to say, they suspended me for sharing historical images on 2 different times. There was another time I was talking about the civil rights movement. And somebody was talking about the debt that black people owe the civil rights. I said, black people aren't the only people who own the civil rights. So I went and found all these historical signs that said no Irish allowed, no Catholics allowed, no Mexicans allowed. And that's the thing. We think it was only black people at the back of the bus. It wasn't only black people. White Irish people, green-eyed, red-haired Irish people, even, Italians, the swarthy Italians were also discriminated against because Italy, the Holy Roman Empire of Italy, was Catholic. And Protestants fought against the Catholics. So there were neighborhoods, schools, industries that Catholics, or i.e. Italians, Southern Europeans, Spaniards, Mexicans, Dr. King got shot in the neck for all those people. It wasn't just black people. So I just shared these historical photos of all these signs from Jim Crow that they never show us. They only show us blacks enter through the rear, no Negroes allowed, whites only. Colored. Colored didn't mean, they knew niggers and blacks. Those words were around. When they said colored, there was a whole nother group of people that today identify as white that were classified as colored in the 40s and 50s. And that was just, again, a historical images from like Getty images, AP images.
But
And they suspended me for that.
I'm inclined to believe. I want to know: did you put any hashtags or any words?
Oh, so you're going to take Facebook's side?
No,
Huh?
no.
I'm not check from Facebook. Oh my God! Are you really quite asking me that? How dare you?
I'm sure you made a statement.
How dare you?
I'm sure you made a statement to classify the imagery, and I know that algorithm of theirs is looking, regardless, for specific.
They showed.
Hotbed words.
You could go to Instagram because I went crying to Instagram, which is also owned by Facebook.
Yes.
I took a screenshot.
Right.
They said the images. They said this doesn't fit with our community standard. I shared the images, and it said all I said was, because this guy was talking about how black people didn't live up to the civil rights and what we were supposed to do because, they did this, we supposed to vote and this and that. I'm like, well, why are you telling black folks how we didn't earn or we didn't live up to what they, because that's what Cosby used to say. Cosby said his famous line was that's been forgotten is we didn't keep up our end of the bargain. He's basically saying the civil rights leaders and the American government made a bargain with us.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
No, he said even further. It went further than that. Yeah, that was the thing. But he said that the government gave black people everything we asked for. And in exchange, we would be dutiful citizens and good stewards of all of the benefits they bestow upon us. And we squandered the benefits and we did not carry out, behave as good citizens. So pulling up pants, voting, valuing education, being willing to work hard and sacrifice, all those things that Donald Trump does and other elite whites. He said that we didn't keep up our end of the bargain. So mass incarceration and all the suffering we endure right now is our fault because the government said half a century ago, here are your full rights and here's everything you need to succeed. You just got to manage it properly. And we didn't. So that's basically was that dude like we didn't. And I'm like, well, how come I never hear all you black people that try to beat us over the head with Martin Luther King's corpse? How come I never hear y'all talk about what the Irish owe Dr. King and owe the civil rights and owe black people? What the Catholics, what the Mexicans. Upwards of 80% of the people in this, the only people that had their rights from day one were the male, land-owning, Anglo-Saxon Protestant, the WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant males.
Correct.
Those are the only people that walk through the door with full rights. And to this day, these are the richest, most powerful people in the world. In the United States and in the world. Every other group of people, including all white women, that had to fight for their quote-unquote rights owe a debt to black people because we are the people who spilled the most blood and did the most consistent fighting and voting and petitioning and protesting and demonstrating and praying for the United States to live up to the content of its creed.
Baba used to preach about it all the time, about how a white woman couldn't even be an airline stewardess prior to it.
Right.
Yeah.
But white women act like they're the handmaids. They're the ones who suffer.
Yeah.
They're the ones who owe us a debt. But we got to talk about Veterans Day for a minute. Also I want to say Chicago Public Housing Authority said you can't smoke weed January 1st, even though weed will be legal in all the white neighborhoods and all the affluent neighborhoods. They can toke up and smoke up like it ain't no thing. If you live in a Chicago Public Housing Section 8 or get any type of subsidy or support, you cannot engage in the legal right to consume marijuana in your domicile, in the privacy of your home.
Only because it's still the federal mandate.
Yes, and that's why in Colorado they've made more weed arrests in Colorado since weed became legal than before. Because it's not legal, it's regulated. And there are more black and Latino youth going to jail for weed violations in Colorado now than when it was illegal.
Here's my problem with these issues.
Uh,
And neither one of us are consumers. But for clarification.
I use CBD oil.
Okay.
So yeah, man.
But
Me do my thing, yeah, man. Rasta. Yeah.
is the state
Uh,
already collecting taxes before January 1st?
yeah, they already making money.
So how can you govern anything you collecting money on at that point?
They regulate everything they collect money on.
Yeah, but I mean, you put jurisdiction about public or private sector.
Uh,
You collecting money on it,
Mm.
and all around you, it's approved. So I could see if it's a legal something because you are bartering and receiving monies from it. Is what I'm saying.
yes.
So
Oh, no,
now,
but there are no federal taxes. You have to pay state and city taxes, but you don't have to pay federal taxes because it's illegal on the federal level. But Obama put in the don't ask, don't tell. But Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders said if they're elected, they'll do away with the class one designation for marijuana because marijuana is policed the exact same way that heroin is. It's a schedule 1 or a class 1. I don't know the classification because, like you said, you and I are pure angels of heart, and we don't partake in any of the devil's weed,
yeah.
devil's nectars. But anyway, that's just something. More injustice, more get you in the back because medical marijuana has been legal in Chicago for some time, and the buy-in, the application process was about $2 million. Just to get your foot in the door, you had to grease $2 million worth of palms. So if you, it's going to be something. Marijuana is going to be something to make the rich richer. It's not going to be really street level up and coming entrepreneurs. That ain't happening.
Yeah, it's some new big company here already that sees their stake down there, Everest or something.
But let's talk about veterans on Veterans Day. I usually get cussed out on Veterans Day because there are a lot of extremely patriotic, pro-military black people in the United States. It blows my mind. Every time this happens. And I just have one question. Are veterans truly freedom fighters or are they fighters for empire? People always say, if you love your freedom, thank a veteran. And I am a student of public policy, a grad student. I have my degree in political science and public policy. And I don't know of one freedom that was secured by the military that we enjoy. From the 10 amendments, the first 10 amendments of the U.S. Constitution, and all following amendments, our freedoms are given to us. And I know this isn't as glorious. Our freedoms are given to us and sustained by bureaucrats, by civil servants, not by soldiers. When has the U.S. military ever confronted a threat to our civil and human rights?
I would say more at the National Guard level.
National Guards came in to quell uprisings. When black folks were fighting lynching, when black folks were fighting racial discrimination, when black folks were lashing out because our leaders had been assassinated, the National Guard has served to repress people in expressing their freedom.
But in the case of floods and
that's not freedom, but that's not an enforcement of freedom. Yes, they provide relief. The National Guard, the Army Corps of Engineers, they do provide services to the people.
Right.
They don't say, if you're happy with your services, thank a veteran. They say, if you love freedom, thank a veteran.
True.
What freedom do we have that the veterans have fought for or secured for us?
Anyone?
When has the veterans ever taken up arms? Because I don't know if people really understand what their freedoms are supposed to be under the Constitution as a U.S. citizen and how they came to be.
Right.
Our freedoms were not fought for. Our freedoms were negotiated.
Life, liberty, and pursuit of
life, liberty, and property was the original
Exactly.
trifecta.
Right.
They took property out because they
Right.
didn't want property to be a right.
Right.
Because then that would make
wasn't happy.
that socialism.
Right.
Under socialism, you have a right to property.
Right.
Under capitalism, you have the right to chase it.
Right.
You know, you have freedom to have a dozen mansions, and you have freedoms to sleep under a bridge. Well, you don't really have freedoms to sleep under a bridge, but you do have the freedom to be homeless.
Yes.
So I would like to know. You can even call in 312-985-7834. 312-985-7834 to go live on the air, and you can explain to me what freedoms U.S. soldiers, and I'll go a step further, because they claim that the United States goes all over the world fighting for democracy. Name a place in the world where the U.S. has secured democracy
Yeah.
or brought rights to people. And a lot of veterans believe this too.
Yeah.
They their entire lives in the military, but when you ask them specifically, every time I've had an opportunity, I got veterans in my family. You know, my uncle, who's the most prominent father figure in my life, my uncle, my second oldest uncle, who is a veteran, but now he's an older man now. He was in Vietnam. He knows better. It ain't really fair to talk to him because he'll tell you, yeah, man, it was a monkey hustle.
Right.
He'll run it down. So he's not fair. But there are some patriotic.
Yes.
There are some patriotic soldiers who believe in the message and the dream of America.
The red, white, and blue.
Right. And I asked them, yo, where has the United States brought democracy? When has the United States ever secured freedom, and so on and so forth? And I asked this as well. For what reason should I worship, celebrate, or venerate veterans? What do I, as a U.S. citizen, owe any veteran?
Yeah.
And I'm saying, y'all wave y'all flags,
pension.
y'all thank y'all, huh?
A pension.
They should thank me for that. They should thank me for that.
Yeah.
I don't have to thank them for their pensions. The U.S. taxpayer pays their pensions.
Yeah.
And listen, y'all making me be the bad guy. Mm-hmm. Teach me. I learned something new today about the Bible being under copyright. Teach me. Tell me what freedom a veteran has fought for. Tell me where the U.S. military has brought democracy. Tell me for what reason should I be grateful. It could be, what do they call it, a rhetorical question.
Right.
Maybe I already know why I should be thankful to the veterans, and I want you to know why you are. Mm-hmm. Everywhere you go, I just flew to Oakland and back, right?
Right.
And they say, first class people get on the plane first. Second, people who are disabled or with child and need special assistance. And then the third people they allowed to board that damn plane are veterans.
Yes.
Why? If a veteran is not with the child, if a veteran doesn't have a first class ticket, if a veteran is not disabled, if you're a fully able-bodied veteran, why do you get to get on the plane before me?
In case there are terrorists on the plane.
No, that's not. That's what they got the air marshal for. They got air marshals strapped up. The air marshal's on the plane for that.
Yeah.
So why? Why when you go to a ball game to watch millionaires chase balls, they give out a special shout out to veterans? When I got my I didn't go to my high school graduation, but I went to when I became a radiographer, I went to that graduation. I didn't go to my undergrad graduation, but when I got my master's degree, I went to that graduation. Every formal graduation I went to, they stood up and said, let's honor the veterans.
Yeah. Salute.
Why? They didn't say, I was a radiographer. They didn't even say, everybody who's a healthcare professional stand up. They didn't say, mothers stand up. They didn't say, hell, to me, you know who they should tell to stand up?
Teacher.
Trash men and truck drivers. Forget the teacher. Trash man and now my wife, damn it. I got to go home with you today. I got to go home with you today. Sorry, yeah, the teachers, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, you ain't said enough. You got to say, teach us.
Right.
Anyway, the trash men and the truck drivers.
Yes.
If they go on strike, the teachers just went on strike for a week. Did it really? I mean, I support it. I put the red thing in my support the teacher. My King Dita's wife, she still is a CPS special ed teacher. You know what I'm saying? I support. Every time I honk, I'm like, yeah, whatever y'all need, I'm down with the teachers.
Right. You are.
But beyond my voluntary support,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't much disruption in my life.
Yeah.
But if the trash men go on strike,
Mm-hmm.
that's plague. That's plague. If you ever been in New York City during a
Yes.
trash men strike,
No, before they had trash pickup.
right? It's medieval. It's bubonic plague is back. And the truck drivers, everything from my organic green tea
Yeah.
to your phone, your fancy phone,
Yeah.
it all come here through trucks. This keyboard is all brought here by the Teamsters. You couldn't even have a graduation. What on a daily basis in your life, sustaining your life through the, like you said, the disaster happens, then you got the military steps in.
Right.
But they create a lot of disasters. But on your day-to-day life, what does a veteran do to you or for you? If you believe the rhetoric that there are people overseas, like George Bush said, who hate us because of our freedoms and want to kill us because of our freedoms. If you believe that rhetoric, maybe you think. But even if you believe that, tell me, what do we owe veterans? And I'm not saying we don't owe veterans nothing. Because you know how I support veterans? I'm against war and I'm against imperialism. Mm-hmm. If my job was to go and kill people and put my life on the line, anybody that was against me having to do that, so I think it's warped because every single society that started venerating militarism and soldiers always does that on the verge of collapse. All the way back to the Greeks and the Romans. Even in the, that's why in Egypt, Akhenaten was like, I'm outlawing warfare. Mm-hmm. No standing army. The most prosperous nations in the world in terms of, I don't mean numbers, because the United States got you on numbers. Biggest GDP. But when you talk about life expectancy, mental health, drug abuse, family disintegration, all of the social indicators, all the nations on the happiness index, mm-hmm. all the healthiest nations have no standing army.
Was it like Denmark or something?
Yeah, you name the nation, I promise you, if they're at the top at the happiness index and social indicators.
Right.
Now, when you're talking raw numbers, GDP, when you're talking about, but Noam Chomsky, one of my favorite quotes from Noam Chomsky is, under capitalism, the health of the economy has no direct correlation with the health of the society. Meaning you can have a dysfunctional society and a very healthy economy, or a sick society and a healthy economy, because capitalism is an extractive force. It's not embedded with the people.
Right.
So that's a whole nother discussion. But if you listen to the Bro Diallo show, we've been over that a dozen times. So, if you look at the nations with the best happiness index, with the best social indicators for life expectancy, for incarceration rates, drug addiction, mental health and well-being, and all of the things that we look at as good, as the beneficial things for living in modern society, the nations that are at the top do not have standing armies. Why is that? So all I'm saying is, I ain't saying we start to spit on veterans, which was another lie. Remember they had all that rhetoric about veterans came home and were spit on in the Rambo movies, and they said that the veterans were mistreated, the Vietnam veterans were called baby killers. You know, a public relations firm came up with all of that. Nobody was spitting on veterans and calling them baby killers when they got on the plane coming back. And the Rambo movies and a lot of other Vietnam era movies promoted that myth in order to justify U.S. imperialism.
You said most of the veterans are homeless too.
Yeah, well, in per capita.
Yeah.
But we have over 24 veteran suicides. No, it hovers around 20 to 22 veteran suicides a day in the United States.
PTSD.
And they found that when the veterans come here, I don't believe in PTS, or whatever you just said. I think that's another racket.
Yeah.
I think that's another throwaway term like ADHD. Instead of dealing with the core issue, you give it a name that rolls off the tongue so you can, you got PTSD, moving on. Right. But again, that's another discussion. But they have found, researchers have found, they're supposed to come out with their ultimate findings. There's been this long study saying that giving veterans service dogs, trained service dogs, will reduce their social isolation and reduce their
Anxiety.
suicide and anxiety, right? And the government, but those dogs are very expensive because they have to train those dogs to be responsive. Because like one guy came back and he was in the military. He had a traumatic brain injury and he developed severe vertigo. So his dog, his companion, support dog, had to be trained for vertigo to keep him from falling down. And when he does fall down, the dog is trained to provide him cover. And all that. So every dog has to be trained, whether you have, like one guy was shell shocked, like loud noises and things sent him off. So his dog had to be trained to be responsive and to help him with loud noises. So the dogs are very expensive to train. And they're even though each dog is expensive to train, it's a lot less than like the drugs and hospitalization and suicide and homicides and domestic violence and all of the other social ills that come from having these veterans out here untreated.
Right.
So anyway, there's a one senator that put up, it's literally called the Pause Bill, that he wants to put up to say, hey, if you're a veteran and you apply, you fill out an application, you come get your dog and you come and you get your training, all that covered by the government, because it's cheaper than putting you through the VA system and drugging you up and drugging you out of your mind and having you end up under a bridge. We give you this damn dog and let you go on with your life.
That's a lot of dogs.
And the government don't want to cover it. And the Veterans Administration won't even back his bill or sponsor his or give support, public support for his bill, because they are making money off of the drugs and the looming problems. Allowing the problem to fester and explode is more profitable in the long run.
Well, you have all the government contracts
and the
through
agencies,
VA.
right?
Yeah.
So I'd rather give you a lifelong prescription of psychotropic drugs versus give you a dog and train up a dog for you every 10 years or so. Yeah. It is so the U.S. doesn't care about veterans. Remember the Bush administration and that hospital, that the largest military hospital was full of sewage and rats. And when a veteran would go there, they were more likely to die from being in a contaminated space, contaminated medical instruments, than they were to die of their disease or their wounds that they came in there to get treated. What was that scandal called?
It's in the 90s, though, wasn't it?
The early 2000s.
Yeah.
Let me see. It was. Oh, have they wiped the internet of that? I just can't remember the name of the hospital. It was the large. I bet. The entire VA, but there was one hospital that was egregious.
In Virginia?
It's right on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, it was in Virginia. But what was the name of the vet? It was like one of the biggest. Somebody's gonna know this. Yeah. But anyway, it's the veterans have never been taken care of. Right. You remember the all the way back under the World War I, and they shot down all those veterans that were supposed. They came to Washington and set up that camp to get their payout, their benefits. Walter Reed. Oh, yeah. Man, my head was about to explode. Walter Reed Hospital scandal. So veterans aren't taken care of. And now there's all these reports coming out saying that soldiers, they're telling the Army recruiters to focus on poverty and student debt. So there's literally a poverty draft now. They're telling the students, well, if you don't go overseas and murder people, then you're going to be saddled with student debt.
Cut your fund.
Right, but most people that the GI Bill is so convoluted now that most people that go in on the GI Bill, they just can't follow the red tape to secure their benefits, so they just say to hell with it. So I mean, if you
know, I was in the military as well.
You're a veteran.
Yeah, but I went through there during good times.
You too low key. what service did you?
Army, National Guard.
What motivated you to enlist?
Pay for school.
Pay for school.
That's it.
So you're gonna advance empire for tuition?
I didn't have to fight.
You went in during peacetime.
86.
See, I graduated school in '92, which
Yes.
was the beginning of the Gulf War.
Yeah.
That's when Bill Clinton. That's Bill Clinton. That was the very beginning with the Kuwaits, when they went into Kuwait and lied about the Iraqi soldiers throwing babies out of incubators.
Yeah.
So the year I graduated, the year I turned 18, was the year that the war was.
Yeah.
The U.S. had just begun. People think the war on terror started with 9/11,
Right.
but the United States actually attacked Iraq and started the war in Iraq 92, 93.
Yeah. Desert Storm.
Desert Storm, and remember Gulf War syndrome?
Yes.
So you going in the 80s, that was
Smart.
quiet. Yeah. It was
6
quiet.
plus 2 in actor. Balance. Get the money.
Or, okay.
Combine that with the PO, and I could leave there. That was still civilian, but still collect check both ways. I was money hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah, DJ,
Nah.
recording, put some records out. Oh man, I was clocking.
Yeah. All right. With a gun on your back.
Right.
I didn't know you was a vet. You keep that low key.
Very.
Where's your American flag tattoo?
No, I don't know. I'm still fresh and clean.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, no
Yeah.
tattoos.
Yeah, you said you were gonna get a tattoo.
I was supposed to, man.
You
I
gotta
didn't-
decide what though. Maybe if we do this out of towner thing between this week.
Well, I was
we'll
only
find-
gonna do it because my homeboy, my childhood friend, my very first best friend in life, he started doing tattoos.
Okay.
And I saw him, and he's posting his tattoo and his work on social media. So I was just gonna let him do a tattoo, cause we homies from back in the day. East Hills Village,
Okay.
Village Boys,
Maybe you get Paseo.
Rip T Fresh. I get Martin Luther King, and then scratch that out, and then put Paseo under that. Oh, first I get Paseo, Martin Luther King,
Right.
then Paseo.
Again, yeah.
Man, Kansas City is whack for that.
Oh, I found out there's a very good bookstore in Missouri. Was it Sees what? I'll find out for it. It might not be exactly close to Kansas City, but it's black-owned bookstore. I had found a list of all the black bookstores you need to know, but it's one in Missouri I'm sure you haven't been to.
I've been to all the bookstores, not Missouri, Kansas City and Kansas. On Kansas City, Kansas, on the state line.
It's in something city too, but it's not
Jefferson
Kansas.
City?
No.
Columbia, St. Louis.
I'll
I don't
find
mess with St. Louis. I got,
No,
you
I
know,
know.
I'm Kansas City got mad beef with St. Louis.
God,
Since we
I'll-
whooped them in the Show Me Showdown,
Mhm.
Cardinals versus Royals, they've been hating on. I don't know. Look, I got a horrible confession to make.
What's up?
My favorite Kansas City bookstore, it's not black owned.
Well, it's
Let-
hard
let
for
me
us
tell
to
you-
get distribution for some
Let me
things,
tell you
and
why.
our
We need to
costs-
open a bookstore here.
because
That's another discussion.
well, we had it out.
We need a
Certainly.
cooperative bookstore.
Well, we had a few out in South Shore area. What?
There's still a few out there, but they
yeah.
don't do. It's like the existing black bookstores now are like clubs. Like they only cater to a certain people, and they buy books to speak to a certain clientele. It's not really, they don't really promote like that. It used to be the black bookstores, they would show up at all the festivals with tables and flyers and all that. And I'm not one to talk about anybody in promotion, because I know you always get on me about my lack of promotion for the Bro Diallo show. So this is a pot and kettle situation.
Yes.
Sorry. But it's true. Don't make it true. Just because I'm being hypocritical don't mean hypocrisy and dishonesty are not the same thing.
Right.
So just because I'm being hypocritical don't mean I'm not telling the truth. So, but anyway, I think we need more co-op enterprises. You know, because that's where the world's going.
Problem comes in of us having the capital up front to have.
That's where
the
cooperation
things
comes in. It's communal. We
Yeah.
pull our resources.
to have it on hand. So.
Because black folks,
And then you have to market the interest to garner people to come in there to get the traffic.
listen, with a cooperative,
Yeah.
it's self-feeding.
Yeah.
When I was a member, when I joined my first cooperative, when you join the cooperative, you got an ownership stake in that, and then you're going to shop there. It was a food cooperative. So I
Yes.
bought all my food from myself.
Right.
So the members who own it can be the customers who support it.
Yeah.
And when you have an ownership stake, you're going to think twice before you go spend your money somewhere else when you getting dividends from here.
But we gotta really learn how to do that in terms.
That's why you got to do it at low scale, low tech. And as you do it low scale, low tech, and you master the understanding and the methods, then you can go on to higher level industries and enterprises.
Because we have a lot of family-owned businesses.
That
Where family
hey,
thinks
let me tell you something, man.
things are free.
I have a family-owned business, and most of your cousins, aunts, and uncles ain't got nothing to do with it. That's a marketing title. The Walmart's a family-owned business.
Yeah.
Family-owned don't mean nothing.
Yeah.
That's a hustle.
Yeah.
Y'all fall for all the hustle.
But we still like to come in and get everything for free 99.
Yep. I still got an uncle who owed me. Uncle Carl came into my restaurant twice and ate for free.
Yeah.
The restaurant ain't even open no more, but I still got that ticket. It's turning yellow on the edges. Come pay me my money, man.
I went to last year, I want to say, and I've written a post on it back in the history somewhere. I probably can find it on my Facebook page. But there's a gentleman, Polish gentleman, on a what is that place? Anyway, I go in there. He had just remodeled his place, or whatever, and it's a loud, boisterous gentleman in there in the restaurant, and he's signaling to everybody. You see that? You see that? That's my brother. He's doing good, and blah blah blah. Talking, he just bragging about the whole restaurant and everything, right? Going back and forth, had his meal, whatever and stuff. Before he left there, though, after he did all that bragging, he stood in line, pulled out all his money, paid for his meal. It's like, whoa.
Well, I ain't gonna, let me not tear down my family. 90% of my relatives came in and paid and left generous tips.
Yes.
I even had, like, my wife, her sisters came down and her parents drove all the way from Chicago down to Kansas City. They not even vegan. They bought a big meal, left, an obnoxious tip, like a $50 tip I had to pay. So most people was good with it.
Okay.
But there's not everybody.
But that's usually at the grand opening. But at
No,
the grand closing,
that wasn't even. We didn't even close it. We sold it.
Okay.
It was doing well, but we just had to get out of Kansas City.
Yes.
And now y'all know why I had to. I ran out of Kansas City. But shout out to Kansas City. Shout out to National Black United Front Kansas City chapter. Shout out to the Popper. I'm KC store. You know, I have a love, mostly hate, a little bit of love. You know, it's the people.
Yeah.
You know, it's the people of Kansas City that I have love and appreciation for. But the overall city and the history, man, that place, it's just like this place, though. It's like my youngest brother was like, I don't want people to think Kansas City is a racist backwater because they changed the name from Purcell back to King. And I'm like, it is a racist backwater, but don't be offended because the whole damn country, the whole planet is a racist backwater at this point.
Basically.
And, you know, there's no sanctuary anywhere on this planet. But anyway, we got to wrap this up. We'll be back when... You coming back Wednesday?
I'm here, brother.
We'll be back Wednesday. How many more black hoodies you got?
Oh, man, I got to keep them going. I may have to go shopping while hopefully get
But
some
I
more.
didn't know you were a veteran. I let me be the first to apologize. You could have answered the questions, though.
No.
Don't
What
get
is
mad
to
for asking
apologize
questions.
for? I know it's a heist.
So what are you doing
The
today?
police
Is anybody
force,
doing,
everything.
Anybody
is.
doing anything special for you?
No.
You have a
I'm
wonderful,
a
you have a
recluse.
lovely family, though.
I'm a recluse.
I went to
It's
dinner
too
with
much
you.
trouble.
You have a beautiful family.
Thank
Doing nothing for you?
Thank you.
Give
They
me your
would
sister's
love to.
Oh, you
but,
won't.
but
You right. I'm
I
like
like
that
that.
too. Yeah, I'm the same way. People be wanting to do stuff for me. I just, I'm going home to snuggle up under the Xbox.
There you go.
I got that new Gears of War 5. Gears
Okay.
5. It's not Gears of War anymore. It's
Do
Gears
you play
5.
online?
I don't play online because these little punks like to cuss.
No, their
and-
fingers
and
move
talk.
too fast
Yeah,
for
that
you.
too. Yeah, they too good for me, but I don't want to say that. So I was like the profanity and these little suckers. My sons play online.
Yeah, okay.
And they do play what's that game, Fortnite and Minecraft online.
Yes.
I just play my sons, and I used to play online a lot.
Okay.
Back in the day, I used to play PC games. I used to play Age of Empires and Galactic Battlegrounds.
I have
But-
all those games. PS4, Xbox.
You need
and
to get
all of them have dust on
you
them.
Age of Empire.
That sounds
Age of
something
Empire
like my
2.
buddy
That's the
would
best
play.
one.
He's in all those
City building.
World of Warcraft.
I don't like
all
World of
that kind of
Warcraft.
stuff.
I don't like controlling just one character. I like the games where you, or PC games where you control a whole civilization.
Yeah.
You know, I like to manage a whole civilization. Like Caesar.
Right.
Caesar 3 is one of. But anyway, I might play
Shout out
on.
all the contributors too. Thank
Oh
you.
yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
for keeping us on the air. Yeah, I need to go. Q4 Radio, AM 1680, Bro Diallo. What's your radio name? Sure, I don't know if I should
For
be
right
saying
now,
your
it's the
government.
Black Grinch.
The Black Grinch. Okay,
It's the
because
Black Grinch.
you a veteran. I don't know. I don't want them to activate your chip.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
I
It'll
didn't-
be in our forehead soon.
But nah, you already got your chip.
Oh,
You
you
ever
know,
been-
I'll tell you. When I got enlisted, though,
Okay. You
I
tell me, boy, you
truly-
already told. You gonna.
I truly believe that we had vaccination for HIV and AIDS. I promise you. We would take a shot here, and it would get big as a golf ball.
So go test it.
And that was the only shot we did not know what we were being
test it.
inoculated
Go
for.
test. I'll take you up on 53rd. Let's see if you immune or not. We gotta test these things. We
Well,
scientific.
you know
Let's-
that incubation
got
period gotta
$5?
be so long.
You say you got the HIV. That's not even funny. That's a serious issue. But
No,
still,
seriously, I believe.
Let's
I
be
believe.
scientific. We
No one in
we
the
gonna head to
military.
53rd Street. You got a
Right.
crumpled up $5 bill.
There you go.
We
There you
can
go.
test-
I thought it was $40
That's
now anyway.
Is it? I don't know how
It's
you would know
$40.
that. I know I didn't know that.
Everybody
and I'm not
talking
sure.
about 40
Everybody.
online.
Ain't nobody here but me and you. Everybody ain't here. How you know the going rates?
Look, just stay on Facebook.
Nah, no. I on Facebook I see pictures of puppies and kittens on
Ah,
Facebook.
you
You
got
look
a
at my
nice
feed.
time.
It's politics, puppies, and kittens.
Yeah, you
Ain't
got
nothing about the rates for 53rd Street. I don't know how you getting insider trading, insider information. I don't know nothing about none of that.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like I said, I don't want to say nothing to do nothing. I don't know what your series of word, like the Winter Soldier, you're the Autumn Soldier.
Yeah.
I don't want to activate you accidentally.
Right.
But just send you on your secret
Just
mission.
know I got your back if some stuff go down.
Unless the words are said.
Yeah.
Until the trigger is turned on.
There you go.
Anyway, happy Veterans Day. With all due sincerity.
Yes.
I don't understand it. I would like someone to explain it to me. I could be the biggest patriotic veteran lover if someone just explained these things to me. What do I owe a veteran?
Yes.
Explain to me, because I know the wars, and
You
I know
owe-
why the U.S. fights the wars, and it ain't got nothing to do with my freedoms or anybody else's freedoms or democracy.
You owe a veteran a discount if you have a small business.
Right? No, I didn't do veteran discount for my business.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's good.
I don't know why. Explain to me why, and I'll do it.
Right.
Everything, I just like to know why I do things. And no one's ever been able, whenever I have this discussion and people start to tell me, well, your freedoms, and I'm like, okay, name the freedoms and name the day that the U.S. took up arms. Because really, if U.S. military fought for freedoms right now, the U.S. Senate would be surrounded by military troops. Because they are every day legislating and downgrading our freedoms. They'd be running up on these CEOs of multinational corporations that are stealing our information and weaponizing data against us. Those are the people that are denying me the freedoms. It ain't some man in a cave in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
It's not some communist running around Cuba that is doing that. AFRICOM, what's the point of it?
Right. Everyone thinks it
Come on.
is oil, but
So
data
I
right
think
now is
what
king.
I see is I'm sympathetic to veterans because many of them come from the poor and working class.
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic to them, but I don't think that I owe them anything except the proper information. Don't enlist, and if you must enlist while you're in there, resist.
Yeah.
You know, veterans join Veterans for Peace or the many other left-wing progressive veterans organizations. Stop going to war. Stop fighting for the empire. You have a constitutional right to resist an unlawful order coming from the Pentagon or coming from the president.
Yes.
So I see veterans as not as freedom fighters, but as empire's fodder. And I'm willing to hear an argument to the contrary, but I don't hear anybody. I just hear more people spew pro-military rhetoric, and that's not historical based. That's not based in reason or anything of that nature.
Fact.
So I'm gonna stay offline for Veterans Day because I know people get mad as hell at me.
Fact.
They get mad as hell.
Still fact.
Why am I echoing? Oh, That's why. I fixed it.
All right.
So here we are, Q4 Radio. We see y'all. Patreon, subscribe, all of that, and then some. And we'll see y'all Wednesday morning. Peace.
Peace.
You gotta push the little white X. Boom.